This is day 3 of the November 96 7-day retreat in Springwater. Let me first say something about asking questions, which happens very frequently in a talk, or when we read a book and a lot of questions put. There's a retreat that goes by where we don't talk about hurt, getting hurt, and the question being asked, why do I get hurt? Or what is it that gets hurt? It's just as an example. We're not talking about hurt right now, but about questioning. Because somebody brought it up yesterday, and it has been brought up many times, that hearing such a question, the intellect may immediately busy itself to answer it. I get hurt because of this and this and this. In the present, in the past, sort of a rummaging through one's psychology to find the answers to why one gets hurt or what it is that gets hurt. And this is our customary way of answering questions. We've been brought up that way to come up with an answer. The quicker, the better. But meditative questioning is of a different kind. Allow the question to sink in, or whichever way puts it best for oneself, to just sit there. Hold it in the mind, wondering about it. Open up to it by not knowing the answer. It's the amazing quality of truly not knowing. Then the mind is not focused on what it knows and what is connected with what it knows, all the associations and the good feelings about knowing something. Not knowing is the absence of focus, the absence of bringing in the past, which is the normal activity of the mind, to instantly contact the files. What was, past experiences laid down in memory. But to approach a question freshly. We did it a little bit yesterday when we talked about tiredness. Not one's habitual reaction to tiredness, feeling it's a nuisance or it is because of this and this and this. And this is what I should do about it. But what is it really? Into asking this question, into not knowing. Often say into the darkness of not knowing the answer. Which is true, one has never looked at it in this way. One may have, but most of the time, when this question strikes one, one may not have looked at it in a new meditative way, which starts from not knowing the answer. And if the question is a truly gripping one, then it will sit there as moment after moment unfolds itself in our daily life, and maybe that direct awareness of how we're responding, how we're reacting, how we get upset or happy or angry, sad, that will be the answer to the question, the watching itself, the listening, the attending to what actually goes on, not what we think goes on, living in our thinking about ourselves, but aware in actuality, the immediate reactions, the hurts, the feelings, the sensations. Because the question was asked and sits there, why do I get hurt, or what gets hurt? And somebody says something, and immediately one feels whacked, and responses collecting to hit back or to withdraw, to justify oneself, to harbor a grudge, to watch it unfold in our daily life in a new kind of looking and listening and attending. Because this question came up yesterday in a group, as we also examined, there are times when it is necessary or appears necessary or may be fruitful to go into the past. It's very often the action with a therapist, what patterns were established early in life and have continued throughout one's life. But there too, a helpful understanding and resolution happens when there's direct listening and looking, not just knowing and stashing away in the files more knowledge about myself. Now, about this new kind of listening or attending. Again, when questions surface from meetings yesterday, I do not remember verbatim what somebody says, therefore can't repeat it that way in a talk. So don't feel misunderstood or only partially understood. Maybe at the time I was fully there and listening, but now it's not all remembered, and very often different people ask similar questions and a sort of new question emerges from the many different ones or slightly different ones. So what most people report about is a tremendous amount of static in the mind, constant thinking loops, dialogues, monologues. Or what appears to be totally irrelevant thoughts. One doesn't know what they have to do with anything. Buzzing. And, or maybe thoughts about what will happen when I get back home. Here in Springwater or in a retreat, I feel a certain lightness, relief from the problems at home. Getting closer to the return, going back home. There's a dread of falling back into patterns of helplessness or depression. And at the thought of thinking, what will happen to me when I get home, there's already depression making itself felt now. To become aware of the connection of thinking and the states of mind and mood that this body manifests. moment to moment or hour after hour. The thoughts die down, the mood dies down. Different thoughts arise, different mood arises. And yet, the dread about particular moods, depressive states, states of sadness, grief, fear of being sucked into that, as one now remembers one was when one was home. Or maybe sucked into them here and sitting. By being sucked into it, what I mean, very little or no awareness in taking this all for real stuff and suffering from it. Partly because the assumption is this will last forever, this will not go away, or it will come back. Always more thoughts feeding moods and states of pain or pleasure into this body. Can we become aware of this, that this is happening? Not just be so preoccupied with the content of our states and the comments on these contents, the predictions, this will always be like that, it'll never be different, it'll be the same when I get home. Not so totally brainwashed by these thoughts, these also very habitual thoughts about our states of being, but rather aware of them, hearing them, feeling them, touching them spaciously, with an awareness that actually truly is always there, like the sun behind the thick wall of dark clouds. It's always there. Anyone who goes up in an airplane finds it out always to one's great surprise. There it is, bright, warm, unchanging. So, what is this new way of listening, someone asked, when all that the mind is presenting is static, stuff, endless or seemingly endless stuff? The new state of listening is listening to the endless static, whereby the emphasis is not on what it is that is listened to, but on listening, awareing, attending, which is very difficult for us. The overwhelming habit is to get concerned with what it is that we hear and react to it. But it is entirely possible to recollect from that into the attending, regardless of what it is that presents itself for the moment. In that way of listening or attending, the comment is superfluous. How many more times will I have to go through this, or will this ever end? It's just listening to what's there. Listening. Letting what's there do its thing without being judged, or forced, or resisted, or adopted. And that's possible at a time of simple being here. I won't even call it awareness, because awareness in our logically, semantically trained brain already means awareness of something. But being here is not awareness of something, it's just being here with all that's here. Here now and not here the next moment, or the next day. So not to get tricked by a depressive state into believing it. Believing that it tells us the true state of affairs for a momentary being. Not believing thought that says it's going to be there again, I'll never shake it. Who knows? Who knows? Not answer this question, but leave it there. Experience and past remembrance says such and such is going to be the case, but that's past. The past can never tell the truth about the present, because the present is inevitably new, fresh, spontaneous. So, no matter what the drama is in the mind, the dialogues, the reactions, the counter-reactions, the despair, or the triumph for a moment, feeling one has licked this thing. One is in control, only to find control is shattered again. Whatever happens, can it be listened to completely, wholly, out of a state of no preferences? Is that possible? A state of no preferences? Obviously, a pleasant, happy state feels quite different from a sad, depressed one. And because of that, the body gets addicted to wanting this again, the pleasant, happy state, addicted to avoiding the unpleasant, sad, or depressed one. And all of that can be listened to spaciously at a moment of sitting without knowing, without preferring, even though the body has its addictions, which are quite plainly felt in meditative observation. Wanting this, moving toward this, moving away from that. If it's caught, as it happens, one can wonder why, and interrupt in that way the habitual addicted movement of the body-mind toward pleasure, away from discomfort. And please, I'm not saying it's good to have discomfort, it's bad to have pleasure. I'm just wondering how aware can a human being become of its processes which hold us in such painful bondage. And awareness without preference breaks that bondage, if only for an instant. Awareness takes the place of inadvertence, habits running unconsciously. They come into awareness, there may be a rupture, maybe just for a moment, maybe for longer, maybe after a while of coming upon it again and again, the habit weakening, because awareness brings a new way of being, a new way of responding. Not out of the past, but out of the wholeness of this moment. So, is it possible for all of us coming to a retreat different problems, different backgrounds, different past experiences, different bodies, different sensitivities, and yet be in touch with whatever unfolds and watch for this desire to want it to be different, to see how it tenses up the body into conflict, which is not necessary. Because being with pain or discomfort changes pain and discomfort. Not that it goes away, who knows? It does its thing, it has its own comings and goings. But it doesn't have imposed upon it the mental story and suffering. Why me? Why all of that? How much longer? I'm a hopeless case. I will never. Others do. All of this stuff is the baggage, not what it refers to. That is very temporary. There's this whole topic which has already come up in a talk, it has come up in meetings, about what is this I, what is the me, what is the ego. Shall we look at that? Because it can be very confusing. Because we're so used to living in words and concepts and taking that to tell us about reality. Let's start with how it came up last night. Someone referring to a talk in which I made the statement that we believe we are the owners of this body. That assumption is there for all of us because we have talked this way, we have heard it expressed this way. It is in the air as well as in the talk and belief assumptions of human beings. It's my body. So let's say from the outset that yes, we talk in certain ways, all of us, I do too. But can one begin to be a little bit suspicious of the way we express things, or rather notice how the way we express things affects us, but makes us believe that this is true, where it may not be so. It's a most convenient way to refer to my body. I'm taking care of it. This is what came up last night. Don't I take care of it? Isn't there an I? Isn't that my body? And just because we all talk this way doesn't mean it tells us the truth about it. But now, please, here comes this thing of authority. Whatever I'm saying, I'm not trying to convince you of something that I believe. I'm just presenting what I'm observing in myself and relationship with others. So, not to adopt what is being said, because this was also brought up to me, can be very confusing. Well, there shouldn't be an ego. She and others, many other spiritual teachers say there isn't anybody. Yes, the way I reacted on the phone yesterday, one person said, getting so annoyed, every trigger pulled in the body, upset, wanting to, whatever, react back. There was ego there. And then an anger at somebody who says, no, there isn't any. So, can we look at it together? This body? I didn't say my body. One can also say this body. Actually happens more and more. The more it's clear. There isn't any particular owner. There's this body with all of its incredible functions, which include thinking. Thinking is not separate from physical functioning. Thinking more and more revealed in the research of the last few decades as being a function of what is called neurotransmitters, chemicals, traveling to receptors on organs and muscles, communicating, conveying, and intercommunicating. So thinking is not separate from organismic function. It's part and parcel of it. So what is meant when one says, I take care of my body? Because that seemed for a person to sort of indicate or confirm that there is an I taking care of this body. How do we take care of this body? On what basis? There's a lot of rudimentary basis of how we were trained. Comes to mind right now is how to brush our teeth with a little bit of reward, a little bit of, I wouldn't say exactly punishment, but being pushed to it or reprimanded if we didn't do it. Now in my particular case, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 20 years, I developed gingivitis and had to have surgery on the gums. Even a little bit on the bones, it had gone that far. And to my considerable embarrassment, the dentist told me, you don't know how to brush your teeth properly. It hurts the image, doesn't it? The pride. It's embarrassing. Because I had learned how to brush my teeth in a certain way from home, at home. I had to pay $25 for one visit to the dentist just to learn how to brush my teeth in a new way, in a new and fresh way. The other information was that if I didn't do this, I would lose my teeth. This having already gone as far as it did. So, who wants to lose their teeth? So you start a new habit, which in the beginning was more than bothersome. Well, brushing teeth 3 times a day, 15 times between 2 teeth, and flossing at least 2 times a day, and getting a little bit of sneering and ridicule from others who thought, how obsessive compulsive can a person get, always having to brush her teeth. But the knowledge, first of all, the pain of the surgery was a horrible thing. The pain afterwards, the knowledge, and I trust this dentist, or this, whatever he's called, not paleontologist, but something, paradontist. I believed, if I don't do this, I may lose my teeth. So this knowledge, the pain, the memory of it, plus a new habit developed out of all of that, is now what makes me take care of my teeth. But there's no need to refer to an I in all of this. if one sees how it comes about. And all kinds of things come about now with this constant brushing, not constant, but 3 times a day. I notice very much, which I never did before, when the teeth are not clean. It doesn't feel comfortable anymore. So I brush them. It's sort of a pleasure. Nice. Like washing, like taking a shower when you're hot and sweaty. So, where's the eye that takes care of the teeth, or is it what we just went through? Please, I'm not trying to convince anyone. Not of toothbrushing either. Somebody did ask this question yesterday when the person said, but I take care of my body. The person said, well, who is taking care of it? Sometimes, and people have told me this, they get annoyed when they're asked a question like this because it can become very pat. Well, who's doing it? And depending on where it comes from or how it arrives, it may just be an annoyance, like a fly, while you're just repeating what other people say. Who's doing it? And I don't use the question who anymore. I used to, way back in Zen days. Because it already seems to imply that there is someone, not our habitually thought about I, but maybe some other thing. A super entity. Who, the question who, may already set the mind in a certain way, which is not necessary to have to cope with. But it may work for somebody, so I don't want to interfere if it is really effective as a question that one lets sit there without assuming anything about it, but wondering. Someone else mentioned taking care of himself by not overeating, fasting. And we're coming to this where we realize there's so many eyes. One eye wants to eat, enjoy it, eat more, cook food, relish it, revel in it. And the other eye says, no, if you eat too much, you get too heavy, you can't walk properly. You'll be uncomfortable. Why say these are different eyes? Why not just look at what it is? The desire for food, even before one is at the table, kindled and maintained by imagination of it. Yesterday we talked imagination of the bed. It's the same thing, imagination of table full of appetizing foods can get this body desiring to eat. Same thing with sex. We don't have to go into every particular topic. It's the same mechanism. The imagination dangling attractive pictures, prospects, scenarios, and stimulating the organism to go for it. Or at least, if there's nothing to go for, to revel in the imagination, in the consumption. Eating, having sex, or sleeping. So, what makes one not overeat? Because this was discussed at length yesterday. Because there's also images of oneself being more slender, more attractive, flexible, enduring, whatever, fitting into nicer clothes, or fitting into the clothes that one owns and doesn't fit into. Can we see in going through this that this is all things of the imagination? One has to think about it in order to want it. And of course there are the experiences that are gathered, talking about eating, as one fills up one's plate more than one really has capacity for eating more than the stomach can really comfortably take, and feeling unwell, dull, burdened, pained for hours afterwards. That's an experience one makes, or one may make over and over and over again. And maybe there comes a moment as one is back at the table, ready to help oneself, where this memory comes up quite powerfully. And one can remember all the past pain about it, discomfort. And that memory is strong enough to say no more, just this much. Even though the appetite is still there to eat more. Because unfortunately for all of us, the fullness comes later, not right away. So we have lost. The babies still have that. They know immediately when they don't want any more, and then they're being stuffed. Be a good baby, or good boy or girl. It's amazing how parents, mothers, fathers, follow the turned away head of the baby to still stuff something into that mouth. Or make the baby laugh and then stuff something. So this is what researchers who've worked on this tell us happened, that we lost our apostat, that thing that tells us when we've had enough. It's buried. Maybe it can be regained. But at the moment of not taking this much or not taking an extra helping, we say, well, I didn't, or I'm in control, or I know better, but the memory of discomfort outweighs the desire for more. It may be as simple as that. It's for each one of us to observe. It makes it interesting. Also sometimes the battle between the two. And when the desire to take some more seems to be stronger, then the brain willingly prints out some rationalizations for, oh, it'll be all right. Tomorrow you can start taking less. Something to go by, some words to help in the decision. Our question remains, can we look at ourselves and our functioning much clearer, much more open, if we don't use this habitual way of thinking that there is an I who is doing all of this? Deciding, choosing. Rather see what happens when I feel I have to make a choice. It takes the energy and the interest to look, to stick with it. But also generates energy. To discover, to be in touch with what's actually happening, and leave that more customary realm of thinking about what is happening. Another argument that people always will make for affirming the existence of a separate me is saying, well, when I stick a pin into my thigh, I hurt, you don't. So therefore we are separate. Well, obviously there are separate bodies around in this world. Nobody can claim that we're not, that we're all one huge body, that all different organisms, like all different flowers and trees and deer. As far as the pin-pricking example is concerned, If we reverse it and I stick a pin into my thigh, then this hurts. It hurts when pins are pricked into flesh, past the skin. Why make an argument of me and you out of that? The me and you is not the fact that there are two different bodies, but that there are two different thinking worlds about this body. The way I think about this body, or thinking happens about this body, is based on all the idiosyncratic experiences that happen to this particular organism, which are never quite duplicated by any other. My sister and brother at home did not have the same experiences, reactions, impressions, and therefore memories and desires or visions as, well, we all had different ones. So each one of us lives in a world of their own making. Again, the words are habitual. The way the thoughts have developed and have attracted or repelled. And in this separate world, which we feel as my world made by me, we are apart from each other. We feel even alienated from each other. Me and my tidy world, and your messy world. My peaceful and your violent world. So, as long as we live in this dream world, let us call it dream world, because it's all made up of thoughts and remembrances and anticipations based on idiosyncratic desires and fears. Not completely idiosyncratic. It has to do with the whole environment in which one grew up. But as long as each one of us lives in this personal world of my identity, we don't meet. We don't see each other. Only as you relate to my world. So it needs a waking up from this dream to see each other as one whole movement of living and dying. Like the deer and the plants, right now all these dry flowers from the summer. I don't want to get too far. We have another 3 days after tomorrow, which is my free day, to look at all of this, to examine. Let me just say one more thing which comes up. People are saying, I feel overwhelmed by all of these things to look at or to question. Can't I just sit quietly for a moment? Of course. If that's what happens, it's marvelous. Nothing coming up. Nothing to worry about, nothing to question. The absence of all of this dreaming. One doesn't have to dredge up questions, but the way we live, they come up quite spontaneously, because we're mostly unhappy about the way we live. And at a loss to really understand it, we feel confused, or really deeply wanting to live differently, in touch, in deep touch with our true self and each other. So let us end here for today.